Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Heather DiBenedetto Reading, and I am co-chair for Wilton Youth Council. I'm joined tonight by my co-chair, Carrie Ann Finelli, and our executive director of Wilton Youth Council, Chandra Ring, and of course, our esteemed guest, Diana Graver, who I will introduce in a few minutes. First, Wilton Youth Council would like to thank Wilton Public Schools, Middlebrook PTA, Wilton SEPTA, the Special Education PTA of Wilton, and SPEDNet for their co-sponsorship of tonight's webinar. You can learn more about these organizations and visit their websites. Sean's just going to put their addresses in the chat, so look for them at the end of tonight's webinar. I'd like to remind you that Wilton Youth Council's programs are for informational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice and are not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please know that is an open forum that's being recorded and we can't guarantee confidentiality, so you may not want to reveal any private information. The presentation will run about an hour and a half, and we'll have time, an hour, and we'll have an additional half hour for questions after that. Please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat, because it will make it easier for us to get through them and make sure that they get answered. We are including a link to a brief program evaluation in the chat. So if you could please complete that before you leave the Zoom, it really helps us to get the feedback so that we can bring interesting programs to the community. It helps to know what you would like to hear and learn more about. And please remember that we are a not-for-profit agency and rely on your generosity to continue running these and other programs for students, parents, and the community. So for those who have contributed, many thanks. And finally, if you're interested in getting involved in Wilton Youth Council, we are always open to new volunteers. So please feel to connect with one of us or visit the website to get more information. And with that, I'll introduce Diana. I'm very happy to introduce her and to have her back to Wilton. She came really thrilled with the content. We did a wonderful book discussion with her book. Diana is the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World, Helping Kids Build a Healthy Relationship with Technology, and founder of CyberWise.org and cybercivics.com, two organizations dedicated to helping adults and students learn digital citizenship and literacy skills. CyberCivics, which was recently purchased by Wilton Public Schools to provide guidance to Wilton Public School staff on digital citizenship, will be discussed this evening. A longtime producer with an MA in media psychology and social change, Diana is a recognized expert on technology's impact on human behavior. In addition to serving as adjunct professor of media psychology at the Massachusetts School of Professional Psychology, Diana still teaches middle school cyber civics at Journey School in Southern California. She received the 2017 Media Literacy Teacher Award from the National Association for Media Literacy Education. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much, Heather, and all of you for having me back today. I had a really fun time talking about younger kids 2 days ago, and I'm looking forward to talking about our older kids today, middle school and up, as we talk about digital parenting, this age group. So without further ado, let me just move forward. So you heard we have two organizations. CyberWise is a site that I really urge parents to check out. It has so much information, resources, videos, all kinds of stuff about digital parenting. It's all free. And then CyberCivics is our middle school digital literacy curriculum, which we're so proud to have Wilton teaching. And my book, Raising Humans in a Digital World, you'll hear a little bit about tonight. All right, so we know childhood has changed dramatically. This is childhood not so ever long ago in terms of how long humans have been on the planet, right? So, you know, maybe 100 years ago, 50 years ago. This is childhood today. It looks really, really different. The way our kids are being socialized and growing up looks nothing like it ever did in terms of human history. And I want to go through what some of these changes are because they're pretty significant. Number one, the way kids are socializing is asynchronous. Conversations could start today and last in a chat for another week or so. Number two, everything they do is permanent in public. This girl might think she looks super cute tonight, but in 10 years, when she sees this still on her social media accounts, it might be a little embarrassing to her. Kids feel like they need to be connected 24/7. This is a really important issue to think about specifically with this older group of kids, because what I hear from kids and the research is showing us that kids feel like they have to be present for their friends all the time because something might happen that they'll miss out on or their friend will need them. So that is really a contributor to the anxiety that we're hearing about in kids these days. Absence of social cue or physical cues. A lot of the conversation happening between kids doesn't have, facial expressions, tone of voice, which really help us understand other people's meanings. Quantifiable. Everything they do is quantified by numbers of likes and, friends and followers. Visual. It's a super visual culture. Everything they put out there stays out there visually. And then finally, this is one that I really am concerned about. It's algorithmic. Algorithms that we hardly know how they work, honestly, are deciding largely what our kids like and what they see. And that's something that I think is really important to teach kids about. So what do we do? Well, while kids have changed, what I found is that parents still want the same thing. I love this quote from author Michelle Borba, who wrote the foreword to my book. She believes that parents still want to raise kids who will grow up to be good and kind. And I think we can all agree unilaterally that we all want that as our objective. So how do we do this? In this age where our kids are really growing up differently, they're looking at screens, their friends are on their screens. We have a lot of challenges. I mean, honestly, I could talk to you for 10 hours about the things that parents worry about, but I'm going to try to distill it down to a few things. What we've really discovered through doing this work, I've been doing it now for 12 years, is that kids need to learn how to keep themselves safe, and they need to learn what we call digital literacy. I love this definition of digital literacy. It's a wide variety of ethical, social, and reflective practices that are embedded in work, learning, leisure, and daily life. So basically, digital literacy is everything, right? So we kind of break it down to make it easier for kids and parents to understand. We believe it starts with digital citizenship, which is the safe and responsible use of digital tools. It's followed by information literacy, which is how to find, retrieve, analyze, and use online information. And then finally, really important today, media literacy, how to critically evaluate and creatively produce media. So we deliver this to schools in a curriculum that teachers deliver in the classroom. It's 75 lessons broken in between those three different categories that I just talked to you about. Everything's activity driven, and our objective is really to have kids talk about these things and negotiate them and figure them out, offline, off screen together before they go on screen, and hopefully don't make these mistakes online, right? So we're really happy that we're across most of the United States right now. We've aligned everything with ED standards. And I think one thing that really makes us different is we're not funded by the tech industry. So we can be really honest with kids about algorithms and what tech companies do to capture and hold on to their attention. So you'll see some of that tonight. All right, I get asked this question a lot, so I'm going to address it head on. Kids are using tools so young. Why do you wait till middle school to teach them this curriculum? And that's a really easy thing to answer. Before kids are 12, they tend to engage in something called concrete thinking, black and white thinking. Everything is yes and no. It's really hard for them to see that gray area. And what we're asking them to do in cyber civics, it's all gray area. Number 2, abstract thinking begins developing around middle school. And then number 3 is abstract thinking is a prerequisite to ethical thinking. Kids cannot think ethically without those structures in place. And it takes about 12 years of life to do that. So why is this important when it comes to the internet? Well, it's a place where ethical thinking is needed in literally everything we do. Let me give you some examples. For a kid, oops, do I upload a picture of my friend that's going to hurt their feelings? Do I like something that's entirely inappropriate? What do I do if I'm cyberbullied? Oh gosh, someone asked me for a nude image. What do I do? I saw some misinformation. Do I believe it? Do I share it? Predator possibly tried to contact me. And then finally, clickbait. Do I click on it? Do I share it? All of these things happen every single day online. And so kids really need to have that higher order thinking in order to help them navigate this really complicated world. So I'm going to kind of zone in on a couple different areas that we really try to educate kids on, show you some of the lessons and let you kind of experience them for yourself. So I'm going to start with a really important topic, digital reputation. Everything kids do stays online forever. It can be searched for and viewed by invisible audiences. Others can share what they do. There's no oops key on the internet. We all know how important this is. As our kids get older, we want them to get accepted to the colleges that they want to go to. And we know that today, many college admissions officers look at the digital reputation in order to determine who to let in. Kids tell me that are in college now that they know that this happened because they were contacted or something that popped up they were asked about. So this has now become a very common practice. So I don't want to see any more of this. There are so many sad headlines out there of kids who have lost opportunities or scholarships or, all kinds of crazy things because of stuff they posted online when they were still young. Of course, the famous story that you all probably know about, Harvard students accepted 3 or 4 years ago. They went online and started what they thought was a private Facebook group where they exchanged inappropriate memes, and 10 of those kids lost their opportunity to attend Harvard. So heartbreaking. We can change this. So I'm going to show you how we attempt to do this. First of all, again, I've been teaching this to kids for quite a while, and I can tell you what absolutely does not work. Lecturing kids about their online world, really ineffective. They know we didn't grow up with this stuff, so they think they know more. One-time assemblies, as I've just showed you, this is a really big, complex world. There's a lot of parts to it. And finally, fear doesn't work. Kids are super excited about being online. Their friends are there. They're having fun there. So we have to approach it from a different angle. So I'm going to show you a little student video that we play for the kids, and then we're going to do their activity together.
We all have to admit, the internet is pretty cool. It provides a lot of opportunities to learn new things and connect with interesting people. But when you use the internet, it's important to remember that every time you text, tweet, post, comment, play a game, blog, or even fill out a form, the internet has a way of remembering you and what you do. All of your online activities add up to make your digital billboard. A collection of all the stuff you've ever done online. It tells the world all about you. And it's up to you to decide what to put on it. Everything you post can potentially be shared, which is awesome. But remember, it can be seen by anyone and everyone. And Google always knows where to find you. So you're gonna want this billboard to make a good impression, because many people will judge you by what they see online. So think twice about the friends you make, about the things you post, and the selfies you upload. Because you want your digital billboard to be just as awesome as you are.
All right, so after the kids see that, of course, we tell them the story, what happened to the Harvard students. And then for our activity, we tell them, guess what? You get to pretend you're a college admissions officer. Your job is to decide which of 2 final candidates will be the lucky recipient of a full athletic scholarship to your college. And this is really important because it's worth a lot of money. And colleges have reputations too. So they don't want to have someone in that's going to be bad for their reputation. So the students have to decide who to let in based on their honesty, maturity, and moral character. So I'm going to quickly show you some of the things we show the kids. This is one of our candidates, David Downing. He talks about his high GPA. He's on the science club. He volunteers for the Boys and Girls Club. He wants to be an urban planner, etc. Sounds like a great kid. So we look at his digital billboard, and we discover that our future urban planner TP'd a neighbor's house and put it on Instagram. He also created a YouTube video about his prank on the local house. In his letter, he says he's on the science club, but if you look carefully at the Facebook post of the science club, it says that he never goes to any meetings, so he got kicked off. There's an article in the local paper that says Dave Downing hacked into the school's computer system to retrieve a biology test. And then finally, he tweeted something that wasn't really very nice. So usually I show this to the kids, and kids are way more critical at this age with each other than we would ever be. And they're like, oh, he's terrible. We'd never let him in, That's what I usually hear. So then we show them the other candidate, who is Sarah Ann Adams. She wants to be an English major. She's on the high school track team. She was the fastest runner in her league. She wants to major in English. And she has a blog that she encourages the admissions officers to take a look at. So that's the first thing the students see is her blog. And I love doing this with students because I'll put it up on the screen and let them, I don't say a word, I let them read it and they're like, oh, misspellings, grammatically incorrect. Oh my gosh, she wants to be an English major. I mean, they're just like aghast, right? And then we see her Pinterest post of one of her recipes. Somebody claimed that she stole it from them. She says she's on the honor roll, yet when we look at the school's website, her name does not appear on the honor roll. She participated in a TikTok challenge that included stealing something from her school bathroom, not very good. And then finally, she tutors kids, but she has an extremely low rating. So what students do is they actually have to discuss in little groups who they would award the scholarship to and explain their decision. So I'm going to put our 3 ladies on the screen on the hook right now, because I can see you and I know you can talk back to me. Who would you give the scholarship to? If you were a 6th grader and you reviewed this information, who would you let into your college?
I'm not sure I would let either of them in.
Fair enough.
I'm going to side with Carrie Ann on this. I would have reservations all around.
Okay. Heather? Oh, you're muted. Heather, you're muted.
I second and third that. They both lied on the application. So
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, she did lie. She said she was on the honor roll, and it's,
Mm,
I'm gonna maybe give her the benefit of the doubt because that could have been a misprint that they left her name off. And a bad review. Sometimes there could be someone who, but it does seem like she stole the soap. I mean, I think you have to go a layer deeper, that you can't believe everything you read online.
okay. Well, Heather, you have given me an excellent segue into the rest of this lesson. So thank you. So this is exactly what we do with the students. And we have a little bit of that. Heather, could you mute maybe? I think it might be coming from there. Thank you so much. So you actually hit the nail on the head. We want the kids, usually when I teach this to kids, like, we're giving it to nobody. They're both terrible. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a deeper look, because you can't always believe what you see online. For example, and you guys didn't get to read the article carefully, but had you read the article carefully about the hacking event, it was actually referring to a different David Downing. And the David Downing in the article was on the lacrosse team, and the boy we're reviewing is on the soccer team. And so the kids are like, well, that's so confusing. And my answer to them is, sometimes there is a case of mistaken identity, especially at a large high school. 2 kids could have the same last name. It could happen. And then I'm glad you brought up the honor roll, because the kids are like, she's not really on the honor roll. And then I say, well, some schools take a bit to update their website, and maybe they just haven't got a chance to update it. And so the kids are like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing. And there's a few other little things in there that we don't have time, but there's other things that I point out later that's like, but you got to look deeper than this. And that's why I love doing this lesson, because were I to tell a kid, your digital reputation is important, but you can't believe everything you see, and sometimes things are misunderstood, they're like, yeah, whatever. But when they do it themselves, they talk about it, it really sinks in deeply. And we want them to walk away understanding that it's so important to examine our assumptions when viewing online information, because online information on the internet is not always completely accurate or even true. Although we may not be able to entirely control what others post about us, we can and should choose our online friends wisely. And remember, others might make judgments about us based solely on what they find online. So important for kids to just get these lessons. And again, that's the purpose that we do these activity-driven things, so that they can like, oh, get it. Okay. Yeah. And it's really fun to watch that light bulb go on. All right. So we know a reputation goes a long way. 42% of college admissions officers report finding positive things about kids that help them in their future. So that's a really important part to know. And also, it's not an option today not to have a reputation. We know that more than half of employers will not hire someone they can't find online. And frankly, that's how most people today are getting their jobs online. LinkedIn, all of that stuff is really important. So, this is an inevitable part of a student's life. All right, so we're going to move on. Later in this first level of digital citizenship, we end up covering some really important topics: cyberbullying, digital drama, offline bullying, hate speech. So I'm going to show you how we do that. We actually have, first I want to show you the data on cyberbullying is actually not great. We know that almost half of kids, 45%, have been bullied at some point in their lifetime. So that's a pretty high number of kids. That's 1 out of every 2 kids. So this is a really, really important topic to cover with kids. I'm going to come back to this in a moment, but I want to move forward right now. We offer 5 different lessons just on cyberbullying, and then we have a lesson on hate speech too. But we really want to address it from a lot of different angles. And we think it's really important to remember that these first 2 things, people can hide behind a screen, and behind every screen, there's real people with real feelings. So these first 2 lessons really talk about empathy, to be empathetic both ways for the person cyberbullied, even for the cyberbully sometimes, because sometimes that's just a cry of help. So we play some games, empathy building games before we dive into cyberbullying. And then one of the really important lessons is taking a look at the difference between cyberbullying and digital drama. And I'll just go through it real quickly with you. But cyberbullying is the use of digital tools to bully, but it has 4 really distinct characteristics. It's online, it's intentional, it's repeated, and it's harmful. So that's important to know, because it is really different from something that's a lot more common, which is digital drama, which are those misunderstandings, being left out, arguments, hurtful comments, blah, blah, blah. And you would wonder why we make a distinction with kids. And it's really important because this happens so much, and we don't want every perpetrator of digital drama to be labeled a cyberbully, because that's just not the case. It's kids being kids. And that's not to say that this is behavior that we condone, but we want to make that really sharp distinction. And I wanted to point this out to you because if you look back at this graph, the number 1 and 2 activities that are happening that are called cyberbullying here are rumors online, mean or hurtful comments online. So again, that kind of falls under a different category that happens a lot, that is almost more important to spend time solving than the cyberbullying, but we do both, and I'll show you how. So first I'm going to play I hate wasting your time playing videos, but this one's cute, and it kind of describes digital drama much better than I just did verbally. So I will play this one.
Meet Colby. He's in middle school, and he communicates with his friends via a group chat that includes boys from his class and some teammates from his baseball team. They use this group chat to organize in-person meetups and the online game sessions that they often play after school. One day, Colby notices that he is receiving far fewer messages than usual from this group. He begins to wonder why. About a week later, he learns from a friend that the boys started a new group chat and that he has not been included. You can imagine how Colby felt being left out of all the activities being organized, the inside jokes, and the conversations happening in the new group chat. And while, at first glance, this might seem like an example of cyberbullying, especially to Colby's parents when they heard about it, it is actually an example of another type of cruelty that is a lot more common online: digital drama. Unlike cyberbullying, which is online, intentional, harmful, and repeated, digital drama applies to situations like misunderstandings, being left out, rifts between friends, arguments, or mean comments online that do not meet all 4 distinct characteristics of cyberbullying. Digital drama can happen when misunderstandings spill over into the online world. If mean or thoughtless behavior play out in dramatic fashion and feel hurtful to those involved, technically, it's not cyberbullying. Still, digital drama can be incredibly stressful and can lead to hurt feelings and damaged friendships. Digital drama is a bit trickier to identify than a case of cyberbullying because it can arise from misunderstandings. Emotions and intent are a lot harder to read through a screen than in person. So sometimes we misunderstand the intent behind the messages we receive or are left out of. Let's explore other examples of digital drama. Sony thinks she's being funny when she creates a fake social media account using her friend Kareen's name and an unflattering photo of her as the profile pic. Rasheem posts a picture of his friend Logan fumbling the ball at his game and writes the caption, "Big L." Tina complains to her friends that they share way too many pictures of their dogs. A few days later, Tina learns that she has been left out of a new group chat called Fur Babies that her friends have made. In each situation, someone gets their feelings hurt, and often the person who inflicted the drama feels badly afterwards too. And that's the thing. Today's technology is such a breeze to use that it can be hard to step back and think about the consequences of what we do online before we post, respond, or hit send.
So, thank you for taking time to listen to that. I just think it's so important for kids to realize that these little minor infractions are so hurtful to their friends. And we spent a lot of time talking about the differences and what is digital drama. We know, those of us who work with kids, it's just so common. And sometimes they don't even realize that they're being mean by doing some of those examples that you just heard of. The other thing that we've found out about cyberbullying, and this is pretty interesting. So 90% of social media using teens who have witnessed online cruelty say they have ignored mean behavior. And more than a third have done this frequently. More than half the time, bullying stops within 10 seconds of someone intervening. So this is crazy because that's the thing about cyberbullying. It's visible and it's visible to lots of kids. Kids need to be taught what to do. I mean, this is just like a no-brainer if we want to really curb the stuff. So we teach them about being an upstander. We have a whole video that goes along with it. But if you don't know what that is, it's someone not involved with the incident, but who steps in to help anyway. Someone who empathizes with the target, letting them know they care. Someone who encourages the target to talk to a trusted adult. So for this one, we have a little story about a boy that the story is delivered both in writing as a cartoon, but a boy who tries to learn how to skateboard. He does a terrible job at it, but he videotaped himself and sent it to his friend, and his friend, without asking his permission, shares it with a bunch of kids who then make fun of the kid. So our students have to finish the story, and they have to finish the story by saying, what would an upstander do? So it's really fun because some kids will write me a story this long with what an upstander will do. And then a lot of kids will do the little cartoons. Like this kid finished it with his own little comic strip. Whoops. And I wanted to point out, I know this is so hard to see. I can barely read it on my little screen, but this kid, it was so cute. The upstander says, "Dear Luke, ouch, I hope you're okay. I see what happened. Your wheel came loose. It popped off." And then the kid looked up Google to tell him how to do better tricks. So such a sweet thing, right? So it lets kids practice different ways upstanders can step in and just, share that kindness with others. And
That is really sweet, Diana.
I'm telling you, I know these kids. I'm like getting all teary going, they're so sweet. They just need to be nudged in that direction, honestly. And then finally, oh, you know what? I think I missed one. Oh, hate speech. Did I? Oh yeah, sorry. I wanted to make sure that those were in the right order. We do have a lesson also in hate speech. And just so you know, hate speech has been more predominant in since COVID than cyberbullying. So we have a really big uptick right now on hate speech. If you don't know what it is, it usually involves calling a person or group of people a name based on identity characteristics they are born with or into. Very common in online gaming. Different again from cyberbullying. Cyberbullying again is repeated intentional harm. Hate speech usually directed at a group or the identity characteristics of a group. So we have a whole activity about that as well. And then finally, the most important thing is to arm our kids with a strategy of what happens if they get cyberbullied. So really easy, we tell them to take stock, block, talk. Take stock means don't respond, record, take a screenshot of the evidence, block, unfriend, unfollow, leave the site, don't put up with it. Talk, if it feels safe to do so, talk in real life to the perpetrator or talk to a trusted adult, report the incident. So, it's just, it takes 5 or 6 weeks to get through this, but it pays off in spades. So I really hope that your school gets a chance to teach all of these.
Diana, do you find that your school actually, the children are actually using this and coming forth? Do you find it successful?
Yeah, I know this sounds like I'm just making this up, but this is the truth. The reason Cyber Civics was launched was because of a cyberbullying incident at our school. And then we have actually on our website, it's the school principal 3 years later saying in 3 years since we implemented the curriculum, they had not had one incidence of cyberbullying happen again. And I saw things almost happen, but I saw the kids dealing with it. The kids would preempt it before it blew up to anything. Because they knew what to do. They had strategies and they talked about them and they were trained, so it works.
That's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so next we're going to talk about screen time because I know we all worry about that. Rightly so. It's doubled from before the pandemic to nearly 8 hours a day. This does not include time spent on screens for remote learning or schoolwork. More screen time is associated with poor mental health, and Black and Hispanic children had about 30% more screen time than their white counterparts. This is another study, more current, but it says nearly all teens in 2022 had access to a smartphone, up from 73%, not so many years before. I love this one. Nearly half of teens now say they use the internet almost constantly. So I don't know if that means like 24/7, but that's a lot of time, right? So we know kids spend a lot of time online. All right. But the other thing we learned during the pandemic is they absolutely needed their screens for schoolwork and to maintain connection with family and friends. And we know that screens in some cases provided temporary relief from real life and offered important opportunities for social engagement. The other upside of it is when there was no one in school, cyberbullying decreased too. That's because cyberbullying is closely related to in-person bullying. It's often the same perpetrators and the same targets. So when there was no school, this decreased as well. All right, so where are we now? This is a really unique time that we have to reframe our attitude and approach to time, to stop measuring by numbers and instead start asking kids, how do you use your time and for what purpose? So that's sort of how we approach it when we start talking about time. I'm afraid we're not going to have time tonight to look at all the videos. I'm going to play you just the first 10 seconds of this one so you get the gist of how we approach it.
Time is precious. I mean, think about it. We only have so much of it. You can't buy more of it. And when you use it up, well, it's gone forever.
Bye-bye.
So anyway, we want kids to take a look at how they spend their time. So for this lesson, I have them take a day of the weekend and write down everything they do from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to sleep. Then they have to make little bar charts, you know, little math here of how they spend their time. And then we take groups of 4 to add up how they spend their time to, you know, a typical group of 4 kids. In this case, 4 kids spent 41 hours using digital media on a typical day. And then I did my whole class. It was 24 kids spent 186 hours of time on one beautiful California summer sunny day in front of digital devices. And that even shocked the kids. They were like, oh, I had no idea that we spent that much time. And none of us do. It creeps up on us. So it's fun to see it in writing.
I think this is a good exercise for adults too.
It is really good. It is a really good one because honestly, parents are surprised sometimes how much they spend in front of their screens. Hand in hand with that, we asked the kids to go on a 24-hour screen vacation to help them. I have them make a bucket list of things they could do with no screen so that when they freak out, they can turn to their bucket list. Yet still, whenever we assign this homework, not just me, but I've heard from other teachers, kids have a heart attack because this is a generation who does not know life without screens. They're like, I'm not going to survive. What am I going to do? One boy told me he thought this assignment was illegal for me to assign. So I said, well, you still have to do it and you have to write me a little paragraph about it. So this is the paragraph that boy wrote. Last Saturday, I went 24 hours without media. It was difficult because my life revolves so much around media. Instead, I had to do other things like play with my dogs or walk at the park, even go for bike rides with my family. The best thing about doing this is after a while, you start to feel calm and relaxed. I believe all people should go 24 hours without media. So he actually asked me to do it a couple more times during the year, which I thought was really sweet. I'm going to give you the lead into the next one. So within cyber civics, maybe your school, you've gotten them through your students, but there are send home parent letters with family activities that align with every lesson taught. So as you might expect with this lesson, we asked the parents to also go 24 hours without media. The kids always warn me that's a really bad idea, but we try anyway. This is a little blurb I got from a girl who tried to do this with their parents. First of all, my parents are weak. They could not separate from their devices. It made it hard for me to do this because they did not pay attention to me. I think it would have been easier if they did it with me. So I hear that a lot. And we know that's true. Parents spend 9 hours a day with screens. 78% of us still think we're good media use role models. So we have to remember kids look to us to figure out how to manage their time. So a couple things to help. We actually have a pretty good tech agreement on our website. It's a template, 4 pages. Really good idea to negotiate agreements with your children when you give them their first piece of tech. And then I'm always asked, how old should my child be before they get a cell phone? And I have this also on the website. Questions you can ask yourself, is your child ready? By going through these questions first. If you can say yes to all of these things, they're ready for a connected device. And of course, all of our lessons, they talk about time in one way or another. All of this is related to screen time, and it really helps kids to figure out, oh, is an algorithm deciding my time, and is my time worth it if I'm doing this? So it's really important to take time to think about all of these things. All right, so one last thing about that, there's a really wonderful study called the Goldilocks hypothesis that discovered that there is a time that's just right of screen use for teenagers. Not too much, not too little, just right in the, I mean, not too much, not too little, something right in the middle is perfect for kids when their well-being is at its peak. And that's because we know that kids who have no exposure to their friends via digital media, that's not good for their well-being. And again, kids who spend way too much time, that's not good either. So the key is with your kids to find that moderate, mediate, happy time, different for every child. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships because it goes hand in hand with time. I often hear from parents, my kids are addicted to their screens. And we have to remember they're not addicted to screens, they're addicted to each other because that's their job as preteens and teenagers to disconnect from their family of origin, connect with their peers to figure out who they are and what they like. That work is being done on screens. Kids love YouTube. It is the #1 social media network, far and away more than the others. You'll see right here. TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat are also favorites. So kids are not, I've asked my students and they're like, oh, of course, everybody knows we love YouTube. About 1 in 5 teens visit or use YouTube almost constantly. Again, that almost constantly cracks me up because it's like, is that all night they're on YouTube? So anyway. So the thing about YouTube is a lot of kids use it now instead of Google. If they want to learn about something, they'll go to YouTube because they'd rather watch a video than read a text explanation. The other thing about that is there's these rabbit holes that are so easy to fall into when you use YouTube. I'm giving you an example here out of curiosity. I went to YouTube, looked up the moon landing. Right away, these are the suggestions I got. Did Stanley Kubrick fake the moon landing? I don't believe the moon landing happened. The moon landing conspiracy, unexplained objects. So a lot of misinformation on YouTube. We know that during COVID, over 1/4 of the most watched YouTube videos contain misleading information. And this is pretty similar across all of the social media networks. We'll take a look at #2 here. You guys, I don't know how familiar you are with TikTok, the Chinese-owned company. Think about that for a minute. Minimum age to open account is 13, doesn't use age verification tools. Kids on this are really, really young. They're between 10 and 19 primarily. And COVID saw a 180% growth among 15 and 25-year-olds. And we know kids are really using TikTok too now as a search engine. This is very new, but for Gen Z, it's where they go to learn about things. And this is really problematic when you think about, #1, how young the users are, and #2, who posts the information on TikTok. It's those young users. So I doubt that many of them are experts in anything, yet that's the content kids are going to for information. So got some problems happening here. And there's a lot of studies out, this one on NewsGuard, TikTok search engine pumps misinformation to its young users. If you go down here, almost 20% of the videos presented as search results contain misinformation. 1 in 5, that's a lot. And then one of the areas we're seeing a lot of misinformation is health videos. Here's an example, #DIY dentist, totally hugely viewed by kids, full of misinformation. So then let's move on to Instagram. So half of kids use Instagram to get news about current events. Instagram also has been found to be full of misinformation. It also recommended lots of false claims about COVID-19, vaccines, the election, etc. And like I just showed you on YouTube, there's a lot of automated recommendations. If kids start looking up something, it could point them towards content they're interested in that may also be full of misinformation. So I'm hitting this pretty hard because I think it's a really big issue today, teaching kids how to evaluate all this information at their fingertips. So it's something that we address in level 3 of cyber civics through a bunch of different lessons. And this one I'm pretty excited about. We actually revamped that whole series this year based on information that came from the Stanford History Education Group that has done a lot of research in this area that has basically found that kids lack the skills to judge the reliability of information online. So they did something pretty cool where they observed fact checkers from the top news organizations to learn how they detect misinformation. So we took a cue from them. We just made a series of 3 videos. I'm looking at our time here. We're not gonna have time to see them all, so I'm gonna tell you about it. But it's this one, it's the first of 3. And these are the questions that the Stanford people realize kids need to ask. Number 1, and these are backwards, who's behind the information? What's the evidence? What do others say? So we teach the kids those 3 questions and skills, and they practice it looking at all these different articles that we've collected that are full of misinformation, but are hugely looked at on the internet. And they apply these thinking skills. And it's really great for kids to have the strategy so that when they go looking at stuff on TikTok, they can ask themselves these 3 questions, which are really important. Then as we move through this level, we also do a lot with visual literacy and media representation. As we learned earlier, super visual culture our kids are living in. So I'm sure you remember the Facebook files when Instagram itself found that the visual images could be damaging to teens, especially young girls. I wrote about it for Psychology Today if you want to look it up. We know Instagram in particular is really image focused. All of their images become their profile. And so it sets kids up for this unrealistic expectation of beauty, which is really hard on teens. It's contributing to this anxiety that we're seeing. So we have a couple lessons that hit this right on the head. Don't let that photo fool you when Facetune goes too far. For those of you who don't know what Facetune is, it's like today's Photoshop that kids use. And they found like a large percentage of the images on Instagram are Facetuned to perfection. So we found an article about that that's really good. And we have the students read it together and talk about it. How do you feel about the editing of photos? Does it put pressure on you? And then we talk about this at the end. There's a new law in Norway that requires influencers and advertisers to label retouched images on social media. Does your group think other countries should enact similar laws? Why or why not? So it gives them a chance to think about, number 1, how things are doctored online. And number 2 is, are there solutions that we should implement to help kids not have to deal with us? So
Diana, I think this is so great. I have 3 daughters. And I mean, I think this conversation is so important. So I'm so glad to see that it's part of curriculum.
yeah, it hits the girls deep. I tell you,
Yeah.
this one, it's really, it
I
brings
agree.
so much to body issues and all this stuff. And, it helps them feel like I'm not alone. All my friends are dealing with the same thing. And can we change this? And what can we do to make change? And that's sort of the purpose.
Yeah, it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on because the next one is more about boys. We do a lot of lessons on sexting and sextortion. And this is something else. It's kind of blew up this year. But the FBI put out a warning in February that there's an explosion of teen boys have been extorted by explicit photos and videos. This is called sextortion. And this is when an adult contacts a minor over any online platform used to meet and communicate. A lot of it's happening on Google Meet, by the way. Predators use deception to convince the victim, usually 12 to 17, to exchange sexually explicit photos or engage in explicit activity over video, which the predator secretly records. The predator then attempts to extort the victim for money to prevent the videos or photos from being posted online. So I don't know if you saw these 2 just heartbreaking stories last year, but 2 17-year-old boys committed suicide after being the targets of sextortion. And I just like, how do they not know what to do? Like, this is crazy that we're not teaching our kids about this topic. So it's part of the curriculum. I'm going to play you just the beginning of this one. It's our brand new video on sextortion, but it's important.
While scrolling through his feed one day, Ramon noticed that he received a new follower request. Most of his followers were people he already knew, but this new follower looked like a girl his age, so he accepted. Suddenly, this mystery girl began sending Ramon messages, asking him personal questions and sending him photos. She asked him to send her photos in return. Ramon thought her behavior was fishy, so he went to check out her profile. He realized they didn't have any mutual friends. So, Ramon typed her name into a search engine, but he couldn't find any info about her. Finally, he put one of her photos into a reverse image search. This is a service that allows you to quickly discover visually similar images on the internet. He discovered that all of the photos she was using came from the account of a totally different person.
So I won't play the whole thing with you, but you'll see, like, we teach, teach kids how to look at, how do you find if the stranger contacts you and says they're a teenage girl, maybe they're not, you want to make sure it's a real person before you start sending intimate photos, right? So that's sextortion, catfishing. And then we have a separate lesson on sexting, which again is something kids need to know, that exchanging sexual images between one another could land them in all kinds of hot water. It's basically illegal, because if you have those kind of images on your phone, you're considered a child. You have child pornography, and that's against the law. So these lessons teach kids what it is, what to do about it, why not to do it, the consequences, and that's really important. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is privacy and personal information. This is something kids worry about. They don't want to leave a bad impression that could hurt college or job prospects. They worry they could be photographed at any moment by friends, family, or classmates. I mean, that's sad that they have that concern, right? They're worried their images will be taken and shared out of context or used to generate a viral meme. They're worried about doxing, when someone posts sensitive information online about another with the intent of stirring up trouble. So we do a lot of different lessons on privacy. When they're young, we talk about, hey, when you open an Instagram account, even if it's private, your image and your bio are public, and people can Google you and they'll see that. So you don't want something silly like this girl has. You want to think of something appropriate. So we do work on that. As the kids get older, we have them actually read the privacy policies of these apps that they use. And we teach them the terminology so they know what personal information is, what are cookies, what are web beacons, teach them all that. And I love this lesson because they're like, oh, Mrs. Graber, did you know TikTok can access my notes when I'm not even using the app? And I'm like, I knew that, but I'm glad you figured that out for yourself. So again, good for them to do this work with their peers. And then I'm not going to play this, but it was kind of cool because we got visited by the Today Show right after I did that lesson. And all the kids are like, oh, you're not going to believe what Snapchat does, how much information they collect about us. And the guy goes like, this is such a weird thing for 7th graders to know. So that was pretty cool. All right, I want to make sure that we leave time for questions. I'm going to look at my time again. Oh, we're doing pretty good. Okay, good. So when we get to the very end of cyber civics, we really look towards emerging technologies and ethical thinking. As you know, there's a lot of emerging technologies right now. It's crazy what's happening. So we've added a bunch of new lessons on artificial intelligence. We're going to, of course, address ChatGPT, which is the new artificial intelligence that everyone's talking about, where kids type in a question and it basically writes your essay for you, etc. All of this stuff is coming, and we have to prepare our kids for it. And we have to think about where ethical thinking fits in and how they're going to deal with these emerging technologies, because, we can't predict what's going to come, but we can teach our kids to use their tools safely and wisely. And so we want to start talking about how they can do that as they get older. All right. So I, again, just touched on just a very few of our 75 lessons, but whenever I do like teacher trainings for school, sometimes I'll do like a whole day training. And at the end, I'm like, okay, tell me what's not important. And I always get teachers on that, because this stuff's, everything I've just told you about is important. And it's a drop in the bucket, but there are so many other topics kids need to be aware of that we didn't talk about, like how to do search. We didn't even address that tonight, or copyright, fair use, plagiarism, all of that's important. And that's really why it takes time to walk kids through all these basic digital literacy skills that they absolutely need in order to be a citizen of the world today. All right, so before we open it for questions, I always like to end with things parents can do. I did this a couple nights ago, but I think it bears for you guys to hear it too. This whole idea of respecting age requirements. Most of your kids are probably towards the 13, but again, we talked about ethical thinking skills, and every social media app requires kids to be at least 13, and it really protects them to be older. I'm going to play a short clip that happened in the news last week of someone else who agrees with that thinking.
Right age for a child to start using social media. I worry that right now, if you look at the guidelines from the platforms, that age 13 is when kids are technically allowed to use social media. But there are two concerns I have about that. One is, I personally, based on the data I've seen, believe that 13 is too early. And I think that it's a time, early adolescence, where kids are developing their identity, their sense of self. It's a time where it's really important for us to be thoughtful about what's going into how they think about their own self-worth and their relationships. And the skewed and often distorted environment of social media often does a disservice to many of those children. But the other concern I have is that these rules around age are inconsistently implemented. We have some of the best designers and product developers in the world who have designed these products to make sure people are maximizing the amount of time they spend on these platforms. And if we tell a child, use the force of your willpower to control how much time you're spending, you're pitting a child against the world's greatest product designers, and that's just not a fair fight. And so that's why I think our kids need help. And what we need, which we don't have right now, is we need transparency from social media companies as to the impact that their platforms are having on kids and which kids are being adversely affected. We also need safety standards, which we don't have. In my house right now, the vast majority of products that that we buy, that I use, had to meet some sort of safety standard in order to be sold. That is not true in general of social media, and that is something we have to fix.
Yeah, well spoken, right? Number 2, I love this. Be like a dolphin when you think about your digital parenting. Be firm, flexible, curious, and playful. And tonight we have audio with this video, ladies. So I'm going to play this one again of a parent being an excellent dolphin.
Deacon, this is really important. I brought you here because I have questions for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's about TikTok.
Oh, God.
What is TikTok? For all the moms out there, what is TikTok?
Oh, God. Okay, so basically, it's like a short form video platform for like kids, social media.
So people like pick a song they like,
Yeah,
and then they like lip sync the words.
yeah.
Should I be on TikTok?
Sure. You
Should
should,
it?
yeah.
Really? Will you help me make a video for TikTok?
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Rolly, rolly, rolly. Something like that.
Not like that.
Like break the legs. Like break the legs.
No,
What's this move?
No.
Oh, I saw one girl doing something about bones for Halloween.
What was she doing? You look pretty cool when you do it.
Okay.
No, I have to correct you.
I've watched that so many times and I laugh every time because I think it's so nice how she just has fun with her son. And we have to remember our kids are having fun. And if we have fun with them, it opens a door. And then finally, educate. Thank you for being here tonight. You're educating yourself. And I think educating our kids is really what's going to create this change. I've seen that when kids engage in hands-on activities and discussion about digital life, it empowers them to maintain balance and also to protect themselves and each other and to create change. And that's really what I think our goal should be. All right, so you're welcome to check out CyberCivics if you want to learn more about the curriculum yourselves. Again, this is our website for parents and teachers, chock full of information, so help yourself. We have a newsletter that we send out every 2 weeks that also has a ton of information in it. My book is available everywhere books are sold, but also there's a free discussion guide on the website. And we really hope that communities of parents would read it together chapter by chapter and discuss these issues that we give them in the discussion guide so that you can help your kids be on the same page. It's really helpful to the children when you do that. We have 2 really good podcasts and webinars. The CyberWise Chats happens once a month. And then we have this Parent's Guide to What Kids Watch. Our host, CJ Lindsay, works for HBO Max, and he talks about new programming coming up targeted at kids. And then our next chat's actually at the end of this month. Oh, I didn't even put the date on there. That's crazy. It's the last Thursday of the month. We're going to talk about ChatGPT and is it a new way to cheat or a new way to learn? So that should be a really interesting one. And then finally, thank you for attending again. Making time for this is really important for your kids, and I know that they appreciate it too. So I think we've got plenty of time for questions, so fire away. Could have done some of those videos longer.
Those were great videos. I love those videos. I'm so glad you shared them.
Oh, good.
Okay, let's see what we've got. Okay, we have a question about, is this presentation or pieces of it being shown or taught to students in Middlebrook and Wilton High School? This presentation is not being shown. However, CyberCivics, which is the curriculum that Diana's been talking about, has been purchased by Wilton Public Schools, and they are slowly rolling out some of the lessons into the Middlebrook classrooms and at the high school level. So that's what I know so far, but it's very exciting. So that's the answer to that question. I hope that answers the question. We have another question. Feeling like these lessons are great for the individual child, but sometimes we're competing with families that don't respect these kinds of boundaries. We don't live in a vacuum. Some parents don't have the same common sense safeguards that you're talking about. Oh, I hear that so-and-so does this, this parent is okay with it, why aren't you? How can parents deal with that?
I mean, you can only do what you can do in your own family, right? I mean, you talk to your kids that every family is different. Everyone has different values and expectations and standards. And this is what it is in your family. I feel for kids because I see firsthand how hard it is when one kid has access to everything and another kid has access to nothing. It makes it really not a great learning community because it just creates friction. And so again, that's why I put that discussion guide out there, because I really want like a classroom of parents to at least talk about those issues together. It helps the kids if you can agree on some things. It makes life so much easier on them. And I put that out there, hopefully, hoping. I know at our own school, we do that. The parents in each grade will just read a chapter and then they'll talk about like screen time together, and they'll say, okay, let's all agree to this. And it just makes it easier on the kids.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how you recommend parents really help their kids or navigate screen time limits?
Yeah, so I really point to that tech agreement. That's the way to do it, pull it out, talk about each thing. It's 4 pages long. There's a lot of negotiation happening. Every kid is different. Every age is different. So, have one for each child. We agree at this time of night, the screens go here. We agree who owns it, what happens if it breaks. We agree on the weekend, you get this many hours, and just sign it, revisit it, have consequences. But, again, kids need boundaries. They always have. And this helps you create some boundaries for your kids.
Thank you. And is there a parental control that you recommend for screen time management and content monitoring or safeguards? But just quickly, before you respond to that, I want to mention that on the Wilton Public School website, there is a presentation that the public schools brought in by BARC that you can view there. And then so there's a lot of information on BARC on the school website.
Yeah. There's a lot of excellent products like Bark and Circle. They're all great. But I just know that once a kid reaches a certain age, they're going to get around any controls you put on them. They're just that smart, right? So I think it's more important to train these controls here. That's what I'm all about. And then if you want to help your younger children, perhaps you could use parental controls, but also know that every app, every type of device offers free controls, and you just have to, this is a place that we can start using Google for information. Go to Google, say iPhone, parental safety, and it will tell you how to set that up for free. So I always encourage parents to use all of what's available on their own devices, and every app, same thing. Go to, TikTok, parental controls, and it will walk you through how their family center works. So make sure that you use that with your child together. And again, that goes in a tech agreement, and, we agree that this and this is how many hours, and talk.
Thank you. I see another question here about how long does it take to go through your whole curriculum?
It's a 3-year curriculum that normally starts in 5th or 6th grade and finishes 8th grade. It's 3 levels that map to the 3 levels or 3 years of middle school. And it's designed to be taught once a week, and the lessons are about 50 minutes long a week.
Thank
and
you.
then like your district, a lot of them integrated in slowly, or they'll pick and choose lessons that work in certain times. So everyone does it super differently.
I think it's also, the district is also planning to have a staff development day in March, and I believe cyber civics is going to be included as part of the staff training.
They had reached out to us, and we have not solidified that, but we would love to do that for them.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then don't quote me. Nobody quote me. There's a question about Hour Pact. I don't know what that means, but Diana, are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry that we don't know what our pact is. And then a question about, is the 4-page contract available on your website?
Yes, it's under tech agreement. So if you were to go to the CyberWise website, we have learning hubs, and under the learning hubs, there's a tech agreement and it's a download.
That's great. I'll also add that I've read Diana's book, and I've also have her discussion guide that goes with it. And it's the most thorough discussion guide that I've ever seen. So I'd recommend it for parents who want to get together with like-minded parents and read the book. It really, the discussion guide really takes you through really in a nice way, chapter by chapter. So I can personally recommend that too.
Thank you.
Going back to the question about our pact, the question is coming from someone that says it's a parental control.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but it would
Okay.
be in the same answer that I gave earlier.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any at the moment, but please feel free to throw some questions in if you have any. And while you're waiting or thinking of your questions, I think Chandra put a link to our evaluation in the chat. So if you could also take a minute to complete that before you decide to sign off tonight, because I know some of you may have to shortly, but we really do take them seriously, and we look to see what feedback you have for us on our program. So if you could do that, that'd be great.
And if somebody wants to privately reach out to me, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to get back to you.
Thank you.
I know sometimes you think of something when it's all over, like, oh, I have to ask that question.
Right. I should have asked that. I forgot. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions.
Diana, I want to take a second while we give people an opportunity to ask any last questions, just to thank you on behalf of Wilton Youth Council and our sponsors for this wonderful presentation this evening.
Thank you so
Greatly
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We can remind the participants who still are on the webinar right now that if you enjoyed tonight's presentation and you think you have parents who you would love for them to hear this message, because it definitely does makes it easier for all, have access to the same information. This will be available on the website, so direct people to the website who might have missed it.
That's great. And to add to that, Heather, you can take a look, if you have younger children, you can look at our Tuesday webinar with Diana.
Right.
Again, same topic, but really focusing on the younger child. So if any of you have younger children, please feel free to take a look at that one too, and spread the word to friends.
Well, I guess we must have answered everything.
Diana, you covered everything.
I know, I should have talked slower. I'm always so concerned that we're going to have so many questions.
No, this was wonderful. Oh, I think we just had a question pop up. Let me.
Oh, the AI. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't believe I put that thing in there without putting the date. That was really silly. But our CyberWise chats are also on the CyberWise website. If you look at the CyberWise website, it says CyberWise chats at the top. Click on that. It will give you a link to sign up for that next one. What's really cool, we've been doing them for 2 years now, and we have every single one of them now as a podcast or a webinar that you can watch. And I think we've covered everything. And we really try to do trending topics. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things as they were happening. So feel free to help yourself to any of those topics.
Yes, there's some great podcasts that you've done on there that I've listened to that were some more age-specific talks where you get in a little deeper on topics. So I highly recommend people visit your site for that.
Thanks.
All right, should we sign off?
I guess we're done. Diana covered so much information that everybody's well educated.
Great.
I love hearing that. That's what
I'll echo the sentiment, Sandra. Thank you so much. And we were thrilled to have you back this year. As you said, last year's presentation, the feedback was really, really great. People are so grateful for the information and felt empowered and informed. The book is fantastic, and we look forward to continuing the relationship. We really appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right.